Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Feinberg from The Hollywood Reporter. Thank you for joining us at the virtual Hamptons Doc Fest, running December 4th through 13th. It's an unusual year in the sense that we're not all together, but it is just as special as ever because we do have a wonderful doc to talk about. And so I'm really happy to be joined by two of the people most responsible for Acasa My Home, the director, Radu, Ciorniciuc, and from UiPath Foundation, the executive producer, Raluca, Negulescu-Balaci. And so thank you both for being here. I hope I didn't butcher your names. You're welcome to butcher mine in return. Let me congratulate you on the film. It's really, really special. I enjoyed it so much and had a lot to think about. But before we dive into the film itself, let me ask you guys, just for people who may be curious, where is home for you each? Radu, you want to start?
Well, my home is in the other room. She's 1 year old. She's a troublemaker. And her mother is in the other room as well. They're my home, and wherever they are, it's where I feel loved and accepted, and it's a blessing to be at home, actually, and to find myself a home.
Very nice. Raluca, would you tell us your interpretation of home?
Yeah, well, I think I have so many homes. One is very close to my parents in the eastern part of Romania. It's a small city where I've grown and where I've started volunteering when I was in high school. And then home is also my personal mission to support children struggling with poverty, because I find so much meaning in my work I've been doing for more than 11 years. And yes, I think home is a personal experience, an inner journey, and it's very much related to what gives us purpose.
Yes. Well, I guess I want to focus now on just how this project got off the ground. And first, I'm going to ask you, Radu, I was amazed to read that this is actually your first feature because it's so polished. It doesn't play like somebody's first feature. What were you doing before this? And how did you then first become aware of this family at the center of the film?
Yes, and it is my first feature, but it's not my first story. I've been doing tens of researches all around the world, mainly as an investigative journalist, but I started as a non-fiction writer and photographer. And just to continue and talk about the family, when I met the family, I was trying to make a reportage about the place, the Văcărești Delta. Out of a coincidence, I met two of the boys. They introduced me to their father, and just a few days in, I understood that my experience and the framework I was used to, that as a journalist wouldn't be enough to build the right context for the story. And I understood that I need to learn a bit more about how to expand my storytelling possibilities, and this is how we started this whole 4 years long adventure.
Yes, and Raluca, I want to get into now how when UiPath Foundation got involved here, because. But first, I guess if you can tell our listeners what the foundation is, what the mission is, and then how you came to know about Radu.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Firstly, I wanted to mention that I'm not the executive producer of the documentary, There's an amazing woman behind the documentary, and she's the producer. Her name is Monica Lăzurean-Gorgan. I'm the executive director of UiPath Foundation. That is the nonprofit that is the main partner of the documentary. We joined a year ago because we were so impressed with the powerful message the documentary conveys. We are not a global nonprofit organization. We are quite young. We were established at the beginning of 2019, and our mission is to support children that come from vulnerable communities to reach their potential through access to education. So there are so many intersections between our work and the story in Acasa My Home. So it made a lot of sense a year ago to join forces to create a space of discussion about the social issues that kids are facing in Romania and across the globe, because unfortunately we have 276 million kids who are not in school. This pandemic has affected incredibly the kids from poor communities. There's an estimation that 10 million kids may never go back to school because they were so disconnected from education. And I think it's important to have the spaces of discussion and to see how we move forward beyond this collective trauma that we're facing at this point.
I want to go back to Radu and just, we've now established how you first came upon the family, but winning their trust and access to them must have been a long process, just based on what we see of the father in particular. He's not that excited about outsiders coming into their business in any sense. And so I just wonder if you can share a little bit about how you got to the point where it looks like you're with them even when they're asleep, which is clearly they believed in you.
Yeah, I was just camping with my co-DOP just outside the shack. It's like in any relationship, in any human relationship, you need common experiences in order to form a bond. From this. Although in the start, like our research and we didn't have necessarily like a clear way of approaching this film visually or artistically. We did interviews, like tons of them, up until we realized that we want to make a family story, and that the families, like the intimacy, is something that we really care about in telling this story. Also because we wanted to find a way in which the family and the characters have enough space to show us the world through their own perspective. So it took it was a bumpy road in this respect. Of course, I mean, the parents were both very reluctant in having us there because, especially filming the children, because they were afraid that the press would get the images and the kids would be separated by the social assistants, the city hall. So when they understood that we're there for the long run, and what we try to do is quite different from the other journalists coming and you're writing about the area and about them as well. Things got a bit more relaxed in the sense that we already had created a space where we would be as transparent as possible with them and about our intentions. Like every step we would talk with them. So we did it with transparency. We did it by treating everyone as an equal, everyone from my team, everyone from the family. There was never an issue of let's say a power struggle, or we were listening, we were asking questions, we were just staying there. A lot of the times we would go there without our cameras. And this is where our backgrounds as documentary photographers or writers came in force. We took our time. That's the short answer is this: we somehow managed to get enough resources to have patience and just to take our time and just listen and be there as much as possible.
How big of a group was it with you when you were were you, I think you also were the cinematographer, which must have helped, that there's, the smaller the group, I imagine the easier it was for them to go, accept you and not be as aware of you being there, right?
No, absolutely. We were very well aware that this is this film can't be made with a big crew, and most of the times we didn't even have a sound engineer, or we were three people working on the field. It was the researcher and the writer, Lina Vdovi, the co-DOP, Mircea Topoleanu, and myself as a DOP as well. For this most sensitive or delicate scenes, I would be there just myself. And for the for the other scenes, we would normally film with 2 cameras or just one. Mircea would take care of the filming process and so on. It was a compromise that cost us a lot in the post-production. We had some big challenges in the sound and in the color, but it was the only way to do it. So we gladly accepted this this so-called compromise in order to have those moments of real family time, of real intimacy and honesty. Basically, that's where the truth, from my perspective, lies. It's always in the honesty.
So to just step back from the family for a moment and talk about the big picture, Raluca, I want to ask you, is Romania and families in situations like this family, how widespread of a issue is it, whether or not it's at this specific delta? I mean, is this very widespread, particularly in Romania?
So the answer is yes and no, in the sense that in my work in poor communities across Romania, I've seen so many kids and so many families that encounter similar challenges to the ones that Enache family has faced. At the same time, I think their journey is quite unique. To my knowledge, there's no other family that lived in the Delta, so the story presented by Radu and his team is quite unique from this perspective. On the other hand, we are the country that has the largest number of children struggling with poverty from the entire European Union, and this is the type of ranking we are not proud of, but at the same time, there are people trying to change the situation, and we are a very dynamic team who works with many local partners trying to support children across Romania. And we work in villages where kids have no connectivity or they don't have access to education, where their lives is completely disconnected from what's happening in big cities. And this very fast transformation of the world is somehow tens of years ahead of where the lives of these kids is right now. So our purpose is to connect the kids to what's happening right now, and to ensure that they have equal access to the future, that they have the skills and the understanding and the knowledge to really thrive and reach their potential. And of course, we're not doing this only in Romania, we're doing this in India as well. We work in Bangalore with more than 4,000 kids from poor areas with another partner, Dream a Dream. And we are aware we can't do this by ourselves. We have a community of volunteers from UiPath, which is the company that created us as a nonprofit. We have local partners, and this is a common effort to challenge the situation. But this takes time. I've been doing this work since I was 15 years old as a volunteer. Then it turned into my professional journey, and I'm fully committed to it. And I think that changes are not necessarily visible where you're so in depth into this work, but even changing one kid's life makes a real difference in the long run. And I think we're very committed to our work, and I encourage everyone to, you know, open the eyes and look around at the communities, and see how we can support.
Absolutely, it's important work. And I want to ask you, Radu. You know, when you started filming this family, I don't think you could have known all the twists and turns that would happen, that they would be even necessarily, you know, essentially leaving the Delta. So what did you think the story was that you were, when you started out on this, what did you think the story was going to be, that you were, was it just going to be a portrait of a family in this situation? And then when all these other things started happening, how did you respond to that? Did you immediately recognize that it was actually, you know, from a filmmaker's point of view, a good thing?
We've written and rewritten the script so many times, and because the story was changing sometimes in radical ways. So it was pretty clear for us that it's at one point this new reservation status for the Delta, where the family was living, wouldn't allow any people to live there, because they would interact too much with the ecosystem, which is fragile, and so on. So it was pretty clear that they will leave at one point. We thought it's going to be 2 months. It turned out to be 2 years, because of our beautifully crafted Romanian bureaucracy. Which is something that gave us the opportunity to actually spend enough time with the family in the Delta to understand how they live, and how the family dynamics work there, and so on, which gave us the immense privilege when they moved out to the city, to actually have the story changed, and a focus more on their relationships, and how the relationships are changing with this new reality, or with these new lifestyle, basically. So up until then, we thought we're gonna finish the film when they're gonna leave the Delta. So we're gonna, you know, like, it was pretty clear what's gonna happen to them in the city. You know, the city is quite ruthless, and we thought that it's enough to have a very open ending with them living on the dam, and so on. So, but it just took us a day with the kids outside, and we saw them in school interacting with the other kids, and we realized once again how special they are, and that they have that the magic that they have is being challenged by this new lifestyle and the new environment. So we decided to continue, and we've again rewritten with the script, focusing more on family dynamics. And up until then, we treated the story more or less journalistically. We started with the idea of making a reportage to see how the authorities are going to change this landfill, and by giving it one of the highest protection status there is in environmental laws. So and then we just shifted to the family. We knew that the family was going to leave. Okay, we're going to see them challenged by Prince Charles and the Prime Minister, and all these celebrities coming there. And but you see, like I realized in the making of the film, although I was very scared of spending so much time on a story, being a journalist, working with emergencies, let's say, we're working with the topics that needed to be exposed, you know, like right away, made me understand the value of time, and the value of patience, and the value of just going deeper, going deeper with your research, and you can only do this by giving giving a story enough time to for it to settle things, and for it to paint. The image becomes clearer when you spend enough time and when you let things settle. So that's the greatest outcome for me out of this, story, professionally at least.
And I think you made some interesting aesthetic choices as well, because the way that the first maybe 2/3 of the movie is shot in the Delta is visually very different, at least from a cinematographer's standpoint, right, than when they're out in the hard, city. Can you talk about just what you did differently and how you decided to do that?
Well, first of all, we try to. I mean, in the Delta, we try to have as natural and fluid image as possible, because the environment was quite, was in a way dictating the way we were holding the cameras and framing those shots. And when we were planning for the city to use more tripods, to use straight lines, because we were entering in a place where governed by human rules rather than natural rules. So so we used a lot more tripods, or we started using tripods, and then we were just like, in time, somehow, because of the environment radically changed. It wasn't, we let's say, even though we were filming as in the Delta, sometimes it was very different, because the characters became more and more different, and they were like changing, not only physical, but their inner lives were changing quite a lot. So that obviously influenced a lot of how the image came out. So
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
I'm curious, along the line, and I would ask both of you this, maybe Raluca, if you would go first, and then Radu, as you watch this story unfolding, either while you were shooting it, Radu, or when you became involved with Raluca, and just the you see that there are situations that arise where child services, for instance, gets called, or different things where, in some people's eyes at least, there could be the argument that the kids are in danger or whatever. And I wonder, it's almost like a question for a war photographer. Do you, at what point is it do you ever feel tempted to intervene as opposed to record and observe? If there's something where you see that, even if it's not a physical danger type situation, if the kids are cold or whatever it is there, how do you decide where it is and isn't appropriate for filmmakers to sort of step into what they're documenting?
That's a beautiful question. I would go first if.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sure.
Well, I come from quite hardcore background of investigative journalism. In my 20s, I would do undercover stuff, mostly around the modern day slavery issues in factories all over the world. All over the world, I worked with hidden cameras and so on. So after many years of working and becoming more and more of a lawyer rather than a journalist, I would film evidence rather than people. It happened that for Acasa, I became, I think, more aware about the fact that I needed to see my stories, or to see the characters in in a more humane way rather than journalistic way or like a professional way. So I became it was more important for me for this story to have it, let's say, morally balanced by my personal ethics rather than my professional ethics. In many ways, we intervene in the story like never before. And I began my answer with telling you a bit about my background. There were stories that sometimes I would do a mistake like this during the process, and I would jeopardize the work of a lot of other colleagues, and even legally. So I was quite afraid. I lived with the concern that I'm going to mess things up if I don't have the clear boundaries in place. So it wasn't the case with Acasa. With Acasa, it was my many years of not being able to do more for my characters. So this time we, with my colleagues and later on with the UiPath Foundation, we decided to actually give them the best possible outcome for their integration in the city. So we started the outreach campaign during the filming process. In our first year, we built the social project Acasa, and then we also published a book with photographs that were made by the children. They were basically documenting their first year of transition from the Delta to the city. Some amazing analog photography got out from their beautiful minds. And with the money that we managed to make from selling the book, we financed the social project. We also managed to buy them a piece of land and the house in the city. It was the first purpose, the first aim, let's say, was that we didn't want to see them separated. We didn't want to see the kids in one of those horrible state shelters, because we were very well aware on how the conditions would be for them there, but also that we were aware that they will get lost if they would, they would be separated. So and later on, we expanded the project and we made it a bit bigger, and we became more aware about other issues concerning integration, like medical integration, educational integration, psychological help, and so on.
That's great. Well, I guess, if I'd be curious if other things that UiPath has dealt with, if those kinds of questions have come up, but also, just looking at, what is the most effective path out of poverty based on your experience with the, other, all of your experience. I mean, is it truly, we see these kids, once they're in school, they seem to flourish. Is that the most important thing, to just get them into a classroom?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And I will go back a bit to something that Radu was saying earlier. He said, we didn't want the family to be separated. And this is one of the principles we apply in our work as well, because the well-being of a child is fundamental. A child can thrive when she has all the circumstances to be the best version of herself. You need the emotional environment to be safe, and being close to the family and together with the family is the way forward. So I've worked with hundreds of families in living in dire conditions, in communities where the kids are exposed to drug consumption, to human trafficking. And what I've seen is that separating the family is not the way forward. So the best interest of the child prevails at all times. And I think it's very tempting to say that education is the only way to get out of poverty, and for many of the kids it is. But at the same time, education by itself cannot really solve all the issues, the complex issues the kids are facing. Because we're talking about poverty, we're talking about so many factors. Poverty is complex. We're talking about living conditions, we're talking about access to food, clothes, talking about access to different opportunities. There's a correlation between the quality of education and poverty. For instance, the poorer the community, the lower the quality of education. And this correlation is not valid only for Romania, also for the USA. And I think there are plenty of communities in the US that face similar challenges.
Absolutely.
So I think that the best approach, and this is what we're doing at UiPath Foundation, we offer an integrated package of support to the kids. So in order to keep them in school and to motivate them to pursue their dreams and to become aware of what these dreams are, we work with the families, we work with the teachers and the schools, and we have this 360 degrees system of support with scholarships and materials for school and access to educational opportunities focused on literacy, numeracy, digital skills, and English. And this is a long-term sort of project, and we're looking closely at the ecosystems the kids are part of. And we have this filter related to education, and that's very important. But also we're looking at education in a quite innovative way, because many educational systems are obsolete and they're not really keeping up with how fast the world is changing. So what we're doing is really supporting the kids to stay connected to what's going to happen in 10, 15 years. Otherwise, we will have entire generations of kids who are completely disconnected from reality, and this will affect the entire society, not only them. So I think this is food for thought for all of us. How do we make it happen in such a way that these kids have equal access to the future? And the way forward is only by really approaching all the challenges these kids have in an integrated manner, and that entails collaboration between civil society, nonprofits, and public institutions, and the average citizen who can also contribute and support all this work, so these kids really have a chance.
Well, it sounds really amazing stuff you guys are doing with UiPath Foundation. I'm going to be reading a lot more about you to follow what you continue to do, because it sounds very important and impressive. And I guess I just want to have a last question that I will pose to both of you. I just want to first say that the film will be released in select digital screening rooms and theaters on January 15th, courtesy of Zeitgeist Films in association with Kino Lorber, which means that people who are watching this Q&A should tell their friends that is when and how they can see it. But it's already had a nice kind of launch. Let's just note it was the first Romanian documentary ever selected into official competition at Sundance, where it won a special jury award. It's been at numerous other virtually at numerous other film festivals, and receiving all kinds of great recognition. So I guess I wonder, with this spotlight on it, what do you each hope the main thing, if people take away one thing from the experience of watching this film, what do you hope they leave thinking or doing differently? And I'm going to have Raluca go first, and Radu, you'll please close us out with your final thoughts after. So Raluca.
So Scott, it's so difficult to pick one thing. I have so many. One of them is stop judging, because I think it's so easy to fall into this trap to, judge people who struggle with poverty. It's so easy to place a label and just, exclude. Secondly, support organizations that are trying to change this situation. And I really encourage you to check our website, uipathfoundation.com, and to donate for our Own Your Path fund, which supports kids to really own their path to the future. And this is a discussion about agency and how we can enable them to really reach their potential. And I will let Radu as well to share.
For Radu, yeah. And also, please also let us know, are you still in touch with the family, and just how's everybody doing? So I know I'm giving you a lot of questions, but I've got a lot of curiosity about this.
Yes, we're constantly talking with the family. The boys are always texting me. We met with them a month ago, just after just after the father passed away, Jika Inake, which was a complete shock to everyone. And now we are trying to be as close as possible to the family, just so they don't lose themselves completely. The good thing about it is that the older boys moved back with the mom, with the mother to support her, we're in touch. There's a lot of work around them. There's a lot of plans we're making with them. So yeah. And about that one thing that people would or should take from this film, I don't know why, but I had the tolerance on the top of my mind. Tolerance. We need tolerance because the lack of it is causing some of the most disgusting problems that we have as a civilization. And at the end of the day, we should the greatest struggle of us should be how to become better human beings, and we should start by tolerating ourselves first of all, and then try to do the same with the others around us.
Well, thank you guys for doing this, and congratulations. It's it's such an interesting film. I don't think I would have ever known about this little, fascinating section of Romania and the whole, there's so many things going on in the world, but I appreciate that you, highlighted it. And I hope we'll have some way of monitoring how this family does, because you really, by the end of it, you do care a lot about them, which is, I think, a testament to the filmmaking. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Scott. Coming from you, all these beautiful words, it just made my evening, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. You guys take care. Be safe. Thanks.